In the gaslit hours of March 30, 1867, as the city of Washington, D.C. slumbered, two men gathered in a quiet, candlelit room, their meeting destined to alter the course of history and redraw the map of North America forever. The world outside was silent, but inside the air was thick with anticipation and the weight of a monumental decision. William H. Seward, the determined and visionary U.S. Secretary of State, and Baron Eduard de Stockel, the shrewd Russian minister, sat across from each other, their eyes fixed on a map that showed a vast, mysterious land, Russian America. For years, rumors had swirled about this remote territory, its icy mountains and untamed forests, but few Americans had ever seen it. The price they agreed upon was staggering in its simplicity, $7.20 million, an amount that, when broken down, equated to just about 2 cents an acre for more than 586,000 square miles of wilderness. It was a sum that would be paid in gold, a fortune at the time, yet a pittance for the sheer scale of the land involved. Seward, ever the strategist, insisted that the treaty be signed without delay. In the dead of night, he ordered his staff to rouse the necessary clerks from their beds, their groggy faces illuminated by flickering candlelight as they hurried to prepare the documents. The urgency was palpable. Seward feared that any hesitation might jeopardize the deal. By the time the first rays of dawn crept over the Capitol dome, the treaty was complete, the ink barely dry. The document, now ready for Senate ratification, represented not just a land purchase but a bold vision for the nation's future. For Russia, Alaska had become a costly liability, difficult to defend, expensive to maintain, and vulnerable to British encroachment from neighboring Canada. For the United States, still healing from the deep wounds of the Civil War, the acquisition was a daring leap, a chance to look outward and imagine new possibilities. The spirit of manifest destiny, which had driven Americans westward for decades, now reached into the Arctic. The purchase symbolized a new chapter in the nation's relentless pursuit of expansion, stretching the boundaries of the United States into the frozen north. Yet, when news of the purchase broke, it was met with widespread confusion, skepticism, and even ridicule. Newspapers dubbed it Seward's folly, mocking the Secretary of State for what many saw as a foolish waste of money on a barren, frozen wasteland. Critics questioned the wisdom of acquiring such a remote and inhospitable territory. Most Americans could not imagine the potential hidden beneath Alaska's icy surface. To them it was little more than an endless expanse of snow and ice, a place where opportunity seemed as distant as the northern lights shimmering above the horizon. But William Seward stood resolute, unwavering in his belief that time would reveal the true value of his midnight bargain. He saw beyond the ridicule and the doubts, convinced that Alaska would one day prove to be a treasure trove for the nation. And so, with the stroke of a pen and the courage to dream, the stage was set for a new American frontier, one that would challenge, inspire, and ultimately transform the destiny of a nation. Tsar Alexander II's decision to sell Alaska was not made lightly. It was a response to a complex web of challenges facing the Russian Empire in the mid-19th century, where survival and progress demanded difficult choices. The devastating Crimean War had left Russia financially crippled, its treasury drained, and its people weary. The empire desperately needed funds to rebuild, modernize its military, and invest in sweeping reforms to catch up with Western Europe. Alaska, though vast and wild, was thousands of miles from the Russian heartland. Its remoteness made it difficult to govern, defend, or develop. The territory brought little profit, and the cost of maintaining it far outweighed any benefits. Meanwhile, the British Empire loomed large in neighboring Canada. Russian leaders feared that, in the event of another conflict, Alaska could easily fall into British hands without compensation, turning it from a burden into a strategic liability. Selling Alaska to the United States, a nation with whom Russia had relatively friendly relations, seemed far wiser than risking its loss to a rival. This way, Russia could at least gain something in return. The once lucrative fur trade, which had justified Russia's presence in Alaska, was collapsing. Sea otters, the main source of profit, had been hunted to near extinction, and the Russian-American company was on the verge of bankruptcy. Administering such a distant territory from St. Petersburg was logistically and financially unsustainable. Communication was slow, and the cost of sending supplies and officials across continents and oceans was enormous. At the same time, Russia's ambitions were shifting eastward. Siberia and Central Asia, with their vast resources and closer proximity, offered far greater promise for expansion and development. Letting go of Alaska was a calculated retreat, a strategic decision to free up resources, manpower and money for more attainable and profitable goals within reach of the Russian Empire. In the end, the sale of Alaska was a pragmatic move, born out of necessity and foresight, not a careless mistake. It was a decision shaped by the realities of empire geography and the shifting tides of global power. Governing Alaska from St. Petersburg was nearly impossible. Messages and supplies took months, sometimes a year to arrive. The Bering Strait froze for much of the year, cutting off direct routes. Russian settlements were tiny, isolated, and vastly outnumbered by indigenous peoples. Agriculture failed. Colonists depended on unreliable supply ships. Starvation was a constant threat when ships were delayed or lost. The Russian-American company struggled to survive, unable to expand or profit. Alaska became a fragile, costly outpost. Too far, too cold, too expensive. The logistical nightmare made selling inevitable. William H. Seward saw Alaska as the next step in America's manifest destiny. He envisioned an empire stretching across the continent and into the Pacific. Alaska and the Aleutian Islands offered strategic bases and future commercial power. Seward believed Alaska's resources, fish, timber, minerals, were waiting to be discovered. Most in Washington dismissed his vision as fantasy, focused instead on reconstruction. But Seward acted quickly when Russia offered to sell, seizing the opportunity. He saw Alaska as a way to pressure British Canada and secure America's future. His determination overcame skepticism and inertia. Seward was playing the long game, betting on Alaska's hidden potential. The Alaska Purchase faced fierce opposition in Congress and the press. In 1867, the idea of buying a vast, frozen territory from Russia seemed absurd to many Americans. Newspapers across the country ridiculed the proposal, and politicians questioned whether the nation was making a costly mistake. The debate was heated, with critics arguing that the government was wasting millions on a barren wasteland. Seward's folly became a national punchline. Critics saw only ice and polar bears. Cartoons and editorials mocked Secretary of State William H. Seward, painting him as reckless and out of touch. The public imagination was filled with images of endless snow, desolate wilderness, and little else. Lawmakers questioned the wisdom and constitutionality of buying distant land. Some wondered if the United States had the right to acquire territory so far from its borders, while others doubted the government's ability to govern such a remote region. The purchase became a lightning rod for political controversy. Seward launched a relentless campaign, lobbying Congress with reports of Alaska's potential. He met with skeptical lawmakers, presented detailed studies, and argued that Alaska was rich in natural resources, timber, fish, and even precious minerals. Seward believed the territory could one day become a vital part of America's future. He argued for its strategic value and future resources, appealing to America's destiny. Seward envisioned Alaska as a gateway to trade with Asia and a key to expanding American influence. He insisted that the purchase fit the nation's spirit of exploration and growth, echoing the ideals of manifest destiny. Senator Charles Sumner's marathon speech helped sway the Senate. Sumner, a respected statesman, delivered a passionate address outlining Alaska's strategic importance and potential wealth. His words resonated with enough senators to tip the balance in favor of ratification. On April 9, 1867, the treaty was ratified, 37-2. Despite lingering doubts, the Senate approved the deal, marking a turning point in the nation's expansion. The House took another year to approve funding, but Seward's gamble had cleared its biggest hurdle. The long and contentious process revealed deep divisions, but also the determination of those who saw Alaska's promise. The foundation for Alaska's future was laid, despite the nation's doubts. What began as a controversial gamble would, in time, prove to be one of the most visionary decisions in American history, setting the stage for Alaska's transformation and its enduring place in the nation's story. For decades, Alaska was ignored, until gold fever struck in the 1890s. The Klondike Gold Rush and later discoveries in Nome and Fairbanks transformed Alaska overnight. Seward's folly became a treasure chest. Towns and railways sprang up. The $7.2 million price now seemed a bargain. Gold faded, but oil took its place. Prudhoe Bay's 1968 discovery changed everything. The Trans-Alaska Pipeline brought billions, funding schools and the Alaska Permanent Fund. Alaska's resources vindicated Seward's vision, fueling economic strength. From gold to oil, the land once mocked as useless became a cornerstone of prosperity. Alaska's true value was finally revealed. Alaska's remoteness became its greatest asset in the 20th century. During World War II, Japanese forces invaded the Aleutians, proving Alaska's vulnerability. The US military responded, building highways, airfields, and bases. In the Cold War, Alaska was the front line against the Soviet Union, home to radar stations and missile defenses. Its location made it the northern shield of North America. Today, Alaska remains vital for missile defense and Arctic strategy. Melting ice opens new shipping lanes and resources, making Alaska more important than ever. What was once Seward's folly is now a pillar of national security. Today, the Alaska Purchase is seen as a triumph in the US, Seward's fortune, not folly. The land's wealth and strategic value have repaid the investment many times over. Alaska is a symbol of American opportunity and wild beauty. In Russia, the sale is remembered with regret, a lost opportunity and a lingering what-if. Myths and conspiracy theories persist, reflecting a sense of loss. The decision is debated as a historic blunder, a moment of weakness. For Americans, it's a story of vision and reward. For Russians, a reminder of what was lost. The legacy of Alaska's sale continues to shape both nations' histories.